What's going on, family? Welcome to the Dr. Eric K. Coleman Show. If you have not, please, ma'am, please, sir, click the notifications tab, like, share, and most of all, subscribe to the channel so that you can stay up to date with all content that is coming from this platform. Today, we're going to be dealing with chapter 7 in the book Paradigm, Thinking Different About Relationships. Coming from chapter 7, your perception is not always reality. We're going to be taking an excerpt from a popular television show called Family or Fiance. We're going to do this in two parts. The first part we're going to look at is about a couple who have brought their families here to this home over the weekend to try to see if they can get the blessing of their families, because both sides of the family are very skeptical. They're not sure about the union that is about to take place between this man and this woman. So let's just go ahead and jump into the clip.
Morning.
Good morning.
How are you guys?
Rested.
Rested?
Well
Well, there you
Well
go.
rested, yeah.
So I usually just like to take things chronologically through yesterday.
Yesterday, was directed at Carlos.
What happened there?
Oh, my sister just verbally vomited at me.
Yeah, she kind of did.
She actually said that I need to grow up.
Yeah, she did say you needed to grow up. She was very clear about that.
I'm getting the sense that she's a little bit dominating, and I'm wondering if that how it's always been.
Oh, she's always been a power trip.
Carlos.
Okay, right off the bat, we would normally have these conversations surrounding the idea that the bride and groom to be are the ones that's really having the issue here, that they're the ones that's really having the problem. But it's taking on a different dynamic here, to whereas the conversation is not solely about the groom, but it's about the groom's sister, who has just communicated she believes her brother, the groom, needs to grow up, as in other words, saying she does not believe that he is ready for this thing called marriage, this long-term companionship. Let's see where this goes.
Has never been accountable, and I will tell you, I am the matriarch of the entire family. So for him to have a problem, it's always Lori bail him out.
That's just her personality. She wants to be higher than others.
Yeah.
So the sister just communicated her brother has never taken accountability for anything. And on the flip side, the brother communicated sister is on a power trip and she always wants to see herself higher than other people. So you have two different sides of the coin here. And the dynamic is quite interesting.
For Ivy, I worry. I don't want her to wear the weight of having to get him to where he needs to be, because there will be times where I can't pick him up. If I don't pick my brother up when he's at that point, he will be deader in the south. And I made a promise he would never be dead.
And what happens if you try to move out of that spot?
So Carlos and Ivy here, the bride and groom to be, the sister is worried that Ivy will have to groom, shape, mold, develop Carlos into the man that he needs to be in the relationship. She will have to carry him, that she will have to hold him up or develop him and carve him into the image of what she thinks a man is supposed to be, but also what the sister believes that not only her brother but what a man is supposed to be. This is quite interesting to see that the sister is taking such great interest in their relationship, almost speaking for Ivy as to, I don't believe that he is the man that you need or that you deserve. And again, pretty much coming from the basis of this show, it seems as if the role is kind of flipped here. You'll normally see the family members representing the person, either the bride or the groom. They're coming to their defense. However, the role is flipped here. We see the sister is actually speaking against her brother moving forward and moving in this relationship, as she does not see him as a grown man. It's clear that she still sees him as a little boy, and that it is her job as his sister to defend, protect, and guide him through life. But really, there has to become a point. When does that stop? Sure, you can be there for moral and emotional support, but still harping on the fact that you are here to pick him up. You are the one that's keeping him out of jail. You are the one that's keeping him from lying in a gutter somewhere dead. And she is pretty much self-proclaimed as being the matriarch of the family. And so we're seeing some things here that it seems as if that she's starting to present some characteristics of she's creating her reality, when it's clear that from what her brother is saying right now, that's not necessarily the case.
I don't think she would let me out.
You're not responsible for Carlos's life and choices. You haven't even given him an opportunity to have real consequences.
It's not my decision on what Carlos asks for help with. It's whether I choose to help him or not.
Yes.
And that is my choice. Those are my choices to live with.
She tries to paint Carlos in a negative light. There's a superiority boost that she gets from that.
Wow, she just nailed it. When we're talking about your perception is not always reality, you're hearing it from the brother's mouth himself. He said the same exact thing, that there is a superiority. She wants to be above. She wants to be higher. She wants to be the alpha. And now you have the family members of Ivy, who might I add, just met the sister and have come to the conclusion rather quickly that her perception about her brother, her perception about her role in people's lives, or even the perception about herself in the choice and decisions and things that she takes ownership of and takes responsibility for, is quite distorted.
Absolutely.
This is one of those cases where she can't let you out. Only you can let yourself out. The lock is on the inside. Let's go to the tasks. How did those unfold?
So I had the 5-year plan.
Right.
Everybody was slightly receptive. And then it came to, are you sure that Ivy is over her grieving process from the loss of her husband?
With Elsa, her and Eric had a very special relationship. They just melted together. So again, when Eric died, Dear was lost on both sides.
Of course, and maybe she is not as conscious of her grief process, and that's tapping on it, you know? Most people don't know that when they're triggered, they actually think it's the other person triggering them. But it's something inside. We could get triggered all day. It's more about what happens in me when this person does this thing.
So that creates the discussion about another dynamic here. When we talk about your perception is not always reality, they just communicated that the sister lost her husband. And I'm not sure how long ago that might have been, but Tracy is stating that she could very well still be going through the grieving process. And we cannot dictate to anyone how long a grieving process is or how long the grieving process should be. That is not for us to determine. That's not for us to speculate. That's not for us to say. But what we can determine, as Tracy stated, that even in the midst of grieving, we can sometimes portray that we are okay when in fact that we are not. We have not done the work. We have not dealt with it. You know, the old saying of out of sight, out of mind. If we just suppress and bury our feelings, they'll just go away. And it's clear that the sister very well could still be in the grieving process and she just doesn't even know it, or she knows it, she's aware of it, but her forcefulness and her self promotion into her brother's love life and wanting to keep him safe, wanting to keep him from harm, wanting to make his decisions for him, wanting to present him in the best light. That's a distorted view of what she may believe is the best light. But there are some triggers here. She probably feels as if she's losing her brother, just as if she lost her husband when he passed away. This might be a trigger that she is reacting to, not responding, but reacting. And this goes back to a conversation we had in prior episodes. It's all about how we show up in relationships in regards to, do we take the time to respond appropriately, or do we just act out of our feelings and our emotions and what has presented itself that has triggered us, that has reminded us of a hurt, a pain, a mishap, a misusage of our heart, something in the past. What characteristics and attributes is the current person exhibiting that reminds us of it? And they could very well be very innocent in their actions, to where their action has nothing to do with you, but because you have internalized it, you have embodied it, and you have allowed it to dominate your life. Anytime someone does something that mimics or triggers the pain, thoughts, hurts, and feelings of a past experience, we arbitrarily make that new person pay for the offenses of past relationships. And it's just completely unfair, is arbitrary to do things like that when we have not unpacked why it is that we feel the way that we feel. Let's continue.
So, how was the family dinner?
That's when things went kind of in a different direction.
We had brought up the bachelorette party. It ended up being at the end where Ivy was like, well, what was the real reason why you didn't want to do it? I said it was trust.
That actually isn't necessarily a trust issue. That's more like PTSD. You relive a really painful experience in your body when certain things happen, like your woman's going out for even a night, or much less 3 days. My question is, do you understand that it's about your past? Because what I'm understanding is every time the bachelorette party comes up, boom, here comes that feeling in you.
I would agree.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about. Triggers. It has nothing really to do with the other person most of the time. The triggers are things that affect us. So, how dare we place blame on the other person, to whereas we're stifling them, or we are trying to put them into a box, we are trying to control them to say, don't do X, Y, and Z because this triggers me. Now, rightfully so, to a certain extent, we need to be conscious of things that trigger our friends, our children, our spouses, our family members. Absolutely, rightfully so, we need to have that emotional intelligence to understand that there are certain liberties that I cannot and should not take part of because I know it will trigger the other person. However, on the other side of the same coin, it is advantageous of the person who is being triggered to do the work on themselves so that they can grow and mature and not be affected by said trigger. It is an unrealistic expectation for you to remain where you are mentally and spiritually in that perspective and not grow in a healthy manner for you to move beyond those triggers. Because what you're saying now is friend, spouse, family member, child, I expect you to do the work to pivot, to change yourself so that you won't trigger me. But I am justified and I am content to stay where I am. And I don't need to do any work to move past how I react to triggers. It is totally unrealistic. It is not fair to expect the other person to be the one that is doing the work to grow and to change their outlook, to think differently about how they show up and engage and perform in relationships when we sit there and we twiddle our thumbs and we have made up in our minds that we do not need to do any work. That is just totally ridiculous. And again, our perception about the reality is totally off and totally distorted.
The hardest thing is I don't know how to fix it.
There is no like fix like that. Fixing it is actually not quite the right idea. It's more like, how do I live with this in a new way? Right now, I live with it in a way that causes discord in my relationship. I wonder if there's another way to live with this. Of course, therapy's a great thing. Meditation's a great thing. Yoga's a great thing. But to me, the real shifts happen when I start to understand what is happening and go, oh, I have a pretty serious wound right there. And now I'm being with it. And when I've been able to do that little by little, I have huge freedoms. And it's that simple. That's fixing it, which is basically just being with it, knowing what it is, as opposed to not knowing what it is.
And that's what we've been talking about for the longest time on this platform, family. Understanding what is in our backpacks. Understanding what thoughts, emotions, feelings, hurts, pains, mishaps, missteps, misusage with our hearts. How have the influences in our lives shaped the way that we show up in relationships right now? That's that self-reflective homework that we talk about on this platform. What is in my backpack? What did I pack? Again, I use the example of if you're going on a trip, and the trip for this example is the destination of the relationship. You said that you want to enter into a relationship, whether it's romantic or platonic, and we pack our bag. And that baggage that we carry into the relationship, have we unpacked it to figure out what is in my bag? What are my joys? What are my hurts? What are my pains? What are my reactions? What are my triggers? What are my sore spots? What are my happy places? Have we sat down and laid these things out on the table and be able to pick up, I feel pain, I feel anxiety? Can we place an experience with our feeling? Can we place a tangible experience with our triggers? Again, if we don't understand why we feel the way that we feel, we're doing ourselves a total disservice. Why do I have this anger inside of me? Why do I have a short temper? Why do I feel like I need to one up somebody? Why do I feel like I always need to be the best? Why do I have trust issues? Have we taken an inventory of our lives to figure out what is associated with those thoughts and feelings? with those reactions and responses. Not that they are always causal, but a lot of our life's experiences correlate with how we interact and engage in relationships. So once we've done this work and we've unpacked our backpack, we then now have a better understanding, just as Tracy said in the clip here, that sometimes it's not even going to be fixed, but we learn to acknowledge it. We learn to not displace reality from fiction. We learn how not to make our perception a reality, because very well you may feel a certain way, you may think a certain way, but your world could very well not be reality. As we saw in the clip, the sister thought she was one way. She thought that she's the matriarch. Everybody looks up to me. I bail everybody out. They come to me. I'm the strong one. When in actuality, everyone around her is seeing something totally different than what she has perceived the situation to be. And that's what we're talking about here, family. Do we have the aptness? Do we have the willingness to change our thinking? Or are we self justified? Do we feel self righteous? Do we not want to do the work but expect everyone else to change? This is the conversation that we want to continue as we pick this back up next week when we are talking about the same thing here concerning your perception is not always reality. So, family, as we continue to do this work in this thing called life, we will better influence and impact our families, our community, our society, our nation, impact it on a global level, and make this thing universal. So until next time, continue to think differently about relationships.